Welcome. This video is going to address the subject of stacking FITS files in astrophotography, and it's also going to discuss the use of Photoshop in rendering these photos and creating a finalized astrophotography targeted object in the photo. And we are going to show the manipulation in Photoshop and how we do this. All right, let's open up Deep Sky Stacker first of all here. And that is a software that is used by a lot of folks. I use it all the time. Let's make this video just a slight bit smaller here so we can see what's going on. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open picture files. Now, these files were taken with my refracting telescope and a dedicated astronomy camera. And we see here this 480 seconds. You see that? Those are the files we are going to choose first, and they are light files, as the FITS file format shows us. The L means light files, which are the files we actually take of space with the telescope on a guided system for many, many minutes at a time. 480-second exposures, and it looks like there's maybe 12 pictures here. So let's open those up. All right, we've completed the selection. We're going to open those. Again, we are in Deep Sky Stacker. We see now those pictures right there. They have come in, and they are light frames, and they also have an icon here that shows us that they are light frames. So also a score. The score now, if you have pictures that come in at a score of 5 or 10 or 30, 40 maybe, they're just not going to work. Usually that's because that you have something wrong with the focus, perhaps the back focus, or focusing in general on your FITS files. And the score here is developed by an algorithm that I'm not familiar with, but I do know that numbers like this are actually on the low side of good. You want to make sure you have certainly in the hundreds toward 1,000 on the score for these files to work properly. Okay, so let's go on up here now and get our dark files. You see up here we're going to stack, registering and stacking. We've already opened the picture files. They are in here. Now I'm going to go to my dark files. Let's talk about dark files before I open them up. What are dark files? They are files that we take with the camera at the same temperature as the light files. So see right here we are at 5 degrees C on the sensor, and these dark files must be taken at the same temperature. And they are taken with the telescope lens covered with a dark lens cover. And the reason for this is we want to take a picture of nothing, if you will, and we are rendering the camera noise only in the picture. And that's what the stacking is going to do. It's going to use those pictures to eliminate the noise in the light pictures. So the camera noise will then be negated, and for all intents and purposes, it'll be gone. So we're going to open these dark files. Now I took some dark files here, and here they are. I took them for 240 seconds. Notice at the same temperature. Very important. Notice that the FITS file, which is what all these are, FITS files. And notice that we're seeing D for dark. So I'm going to come in here. It just helps us to see which ones are the dark files. I'm only picking the ones of the same time, 240 seconds at the same temperature of plus 5 degrees C. We're going to open those up. Now we have populated again. See, we have lights, and the second group now are darks, and they are populated. Notice they have the dark icon here for the visual. Now we're going to open flat files. Flat files are like dark files, except they are taken with a light in front of the telescope that is a known value. So what I use is one of those tracing tables. It's a little neat portable device that's as big as not quite as big as a laptop, and it has a light projection behind a piece of translucent white material, and it's used to trace things with tracing paper, so you can see between the paper and make lines and trace. Well, works great for a generator, a light generator in front of the telescope, so that you have the constant value of light. That's what we're looking for in order to calibrate the light, the amount of light. So now we're going to go up here and find those, and those are going to be in our file here, and they are going to be shown here if I can find them. They are flat files right here. We're going to open those up, and you see those were taken at only 5 seconds, because that's all we needed to expose to get this constant light. So we'll hit the shift here and open all these up. There they are. We will now place them into the deep sky stacker. And now you can see those have kind of a larger circle of white. Let's compare those with the light files. See, the light files look more like a star, and the flat or files that we're taking here for the calibration of light are displayed here with that symbol. And they're called flat files. Again, the FITS files has the letter F to indicate that. All right, let's move on here. Now we're going to do the offset bias files. What are they? Offset bias files. They are up here. They are an exposure, you can see right here in this field, of only 10 milliseconds, or 0.01 seconds. And this is a very low exposure, and that's what it should be. To get a bias file, what you are doing is you're taking a picture without any exposure, essentially, or zero exposure. And so we come close here with 10 milliseconds, and the reason for that is we're going to look at any noise in the camera that is not generated by the sensor, but is generated by the electronics and the rest of the circuits. So we're going to now come in here, and we're going to do Shift and pull these B for bias frames into Deep Sky Stacker. There they drop in nicely. Bias offset, we see 10 milliseconds, and we have the icon. We can compare it quickly to the darks. You see the darks are black, and see how those are gray colored, and in reality they have some stripes on them, because that's typically what the pictures look like. If you look at them, you'll see they look like they have lines going through them. Okay, so now we have all of the frames. Let's go over this one more time in summary. We are stacking light frames, dark frames, flat frames, and offset bias frames. Now the interesting thing here is we are seeing 0 light frames. You see that right there? We're going to come in here and check all these. See where we say check all? Now we're going to go check all, and we will now see that the light frames are now appearing, you see, as 12. It took us the operation, check all. That's what you have to say. Okay, we have considered now, we could say check above a threshold, and that has to do with this scoring, but all of them are about 500, so I'm going to use all of them. We come in here now, and we're going to begin to register. Notice we have 2 operations, register and stack. Registry is the taking of 2 objects, and these 2 objects are going to be sitting on top of one another, and they are going to line up. So you kind of use your hands as an example, if I can do that quickly. My hands are going to line up like this, you see, and that's registry. So every time we stack a picture, if it's off slightly, it will line it up so that they are on top of one another, just like my fingers are right there. That's the best way I can explain it. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, because we want to make sure that we get all the stars lined up, because we want to make sure we eliminate noise and not stars. And the algorithm knows that when the pictures are the same, essentially, and this is a simplified example, but when the pictures are the same, anything that's different from one to the next will be erased. And once we put it in the digital domain, we can do this, which is really amazing when you think about it. So now we're going to register these pictures. Here we go. We're going to hit registry or register, and we're going to do advanced, and we're going to set this threshold at 2%. We could go all the way up here to 98, but we're going to go down to 2%. And we're not going to check this box. Now, what are we doing here? We're going to see how many stars this detects. And what does that mean, stars? Well, if your picture is out of focus, these FITS files that you have taken one at a time for 480 seconds or 600 seconds, whatever your exposures are, if you have something like a really bad back focus, for example, or you have some type of vignetting, that's so bad that the stars are blurry or elongated, maybe because of guiding issues, then what will happen is the algorithm will throw them out, and it'll decide, well, those aren't really stars, and you'll have a very low number. And if you have a low number here, it will not stack it. So let's look and see what kind of number we get. Now, what is a low number? Well, I've taken pictures before where I had a really bad back focus assembly on the back, and had an incorrect spot. Image spot was wrong, and I had nothing but noise in the picture, and the stars are very dim, and I couldn't get it in focus. And so I only had maybe 3 or 4 stars detected, and it would not stack those. But this looks like it's going to work. 119 stars. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, I've been in Bortle 1 sky sites, which are the darkest sites, and the pictures, when I put them in here, will read 10,000 stars in the picture. So this is quite a big range we can address here. It looks like that 119 stars, that's going to be enough, but the problem is when you get down to 3 or 5 or 10 stars, it's not going to work. So I think we're going to be fine here. Now we are going to say OK and begin the stacking. We're going to leave this all alone. This is just some defaults having to do with stacking, having to do with cosmetics being applied, and different optimizations, and the method being average or median, and I just leave these alone. They work well. So we go OK. All right, now we're beginning to add the dark frames, and what this will do, it will add in each one of these dark, flat, and offset bias frames. It will make a master of all those pictures. So no matter if you took 100 darks, it still makes one master. If you take 100 offset pictures, it will make one offset master, etc. And then what we're going to do when we come over here and stack these pictures, it will use those masters to eliminate noise, picture by picture. So that is the stacking process. Now, this is pretty boring here. I'm going to let it kind of go through here a little bit. You can see it. I just want to show a couple of things, but we're just going to cut the video, and I'll bring you back here when I get the stacking finished. If you look here, see computing master and saving master dark. Did you see that? Now it's going to add the flat frames, 1 out of 11. It just keeps doing this until it finally gets finished. It'll do the same for the offset bias frames, and then we'll be ready to stack. Okay, so let's move on to the next step by the magic of video editing. Okay, we're back here. We can see now we are starting to stack these pictures, and I just wanted to interject here and show you that. It's pretty boring, but what's happening here is we have stacking 1 of 12. So it's going to take all these pictures that we have just registered, and it's going to compare them, each frame, to those calibrated pictures. And it's doing that. Then it's going to be removing, and so you can see here, applying cosmetic cold pixels. And a cold pixel is a noisy pixel. It'd show up as a small red, green, or blue dot on the screen, scattered throughout. And so now we're going to come in here and stack this again. It's just working on it, applying a flat frame, and now it's going on to 2 of 12. And also, it's applying cosmetic hot pixels, creating this filtered image, and the key is filtered image. Okay, so we'll come back now when the stacking is finished, and we'll be right back in an instant. Okay, we have finished up here all of our stacking, but the last frame, the last light frame, and it's happening right now. We've got less than a minute to go here, so I wanted to get started again. Now, what we're going to be doing with this is we're going to be looking for Deep Sky Stacker as its last job to create a TIFF file. Now, remember, these were all FITS files. See right there, FIT. And these are the files that are being saved now after they're stacked together and the noise removed into a single file, and you see it there called autosave 007.tif. Up here it shows we have 12 frames, it shows we have a certain exposure, 103 was the gain, etc., etc., on October 17th, 2021. And we start to see the picture appearing here. We can see very little now. I remember when I first got into astrophotography a few months back, when I saw this, I thought, well, what is this? There's no picture there. But actually, there's data in this picture. And the data will be produced by a couple of different processes, 3 or 4 processes we are going to do in Photoshop. I'm going to show you that right now. And you'll have to forgive me here. My computer is pretty slow in getting Photoshop to come up. I'm not sure what's going on, but it has been pretty slow lately. And we'll have it up here in just a minute. I wanted to make another comment here. You see we've got the RGB here, but we don't mess with that. I don't anyway, in this program. Deep Sky Stacker is finished when it gives me that file up at the top there. So we want to look for autosave 007 TIFF. We'll let Adobe Photoshop open. Okay, it looks like we're just about ready. I'm going to go up here and get the file. Remember that it was 007. We're going to open. We're going to find October 17th. There it is. We're going to go down and find autosave 7 right there. Open. And Photoshop will bring up the TIFF file now, ready for our manipulation. This is actually a lot of fun. This part of it I enjoy. We see that we have 3 stars here. Well, let's change that. First thing we're going to do, and this is true, I believe, of any Photoshop session, whether you're doing it my method or someone else's method. This is a non-unique step we are going to take. We're going to go up here to the image, and we're going to go to mode and convert this into a 16-bit file by clicking 16 bits per channel. Now, I have this set to open up HDR toning, and I believe in some instances that does not occur. And if that's true, you have to go back up here to image and go into the drop-down window and select HDR toning. Okay, so now what we want to do here is we are going to use local adaptation. Now, this is where I differ from just about everybody I've seen doing this, especially for nebulosities and nebula. What I have seen people do is go up here and choose exposure and gamma. And when you do that, you make more work for yourself. You end up having to stretch the pictures many more times. So I have even used equalized histogram on some of my photos, but I think the local adaptation is what we're going to stick with here, and you'll see it'll become evident here. We're going to leave edge glow alone, not touch it. Now we're going to come down here, tone and detail, and this is the really cool thing about it, because we can bring up the detail right here. That's at 30. We'll bring it up to like 150 or 60, okay, to get some detail started in our picture. And we're going to leave all this alone, maybe take vibrance up to about 36%, and maybe the saturation up to about 36%. Okay, and we're going to say OK. Now you can start to see a little nebulosity appearing here. It will convert this to an HDR image, and we'll be ready. Let me come on over here, get this out of the way so we can see better. All right. With that being done, we're going to come up here and begin to do our adjustments. We go Image, Adjustments, and we're going to do Levels first. I'm going to come in and do RGB, and we're going to come in and do this caret right here. You see how it will move, okay? We're going to move it over just a few points. Now, what we don't want to do is we do not want to move it past this line right there. If you can kind of see what I'm saying, we want to only move it. In other words, we don't want to move it over here in the white area above. We want to keep it right on the ledge there, like at the bottom of the cliff. And so we'll put that at about 6 and maybe backed up just a little, maybe up to 4, okay? Leave the 1 and the 255 alone. This is on RGB. Go to OK. Now we're going to come in here and we're going to do our first curve stretch. Curves. So we go Image, Adjustments, Curves, and we're going to pull this upwards. And what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and choose a point about right in here someplace, and we're going to come on up and pull this up. Now, we don't want to pull it all the way up like this. We want to keep it down. We're going to do little, small movements in astrophotography. That's the key. RGB pulled up to about that level right there. We're going to look at the picture here. We see green. We're going to go, and this is a very important point I want to make now. In this entire process, every time you do a curve stretch, you automatically go to the levels afterwards. So I'm going to come up to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. Now we're going to come on over and pull this over like this. Okay, that's always the operation, curves and levels. You never do a curve without doing a level. You can start to see some nebulosity coming in here. We can start to see the Horsehead Nebula appearing right in here. I see green. Now, this is my method. My method is, this is art and science combined. Okay? We are using our artistic eyeball to see what's needed. Now, what I see is I see green in this picture. So we're going to come up here to Adjustments, Curves, and we're going to pick green. So we're not always going to be boosting these colors. We're going to be reducing them as well. So let's get rid of the green in this picture. You can see it's all over the place. Let's just go up in here and pick a spot that looks pretty green. It all looks green to me. Let's just try right here. We're going to use this eyedropper with the mouse, hit on the Control key, and hit the left mouse button and see what appears right there. It tells us where we were, what the color content is, where we were with the dropper. So now we're going to come here, and as you might imagine, we're going to pull this down. This is like reducing the volume level on a stereo or radio. You know, we're going to just keep dropping that down until we see the green pretty much go away. Not completely, something like that. And we're going to say OK. Again, we always go to Image, Adjustments, and Levels. We're going to go to green because we just did a curve, remember. So now see how big this area is here. We want to pull this back. Now watch the picture. It will turn even darker. Isn't that nice? See how dark it gets? Now we want to go over. Now we stay a little away from the ledge, about like that. The ledge meaning right here. And we're going to say OK. Again, we're not going to touch this or this. Now, what I'm seeing is I'm seeing kind of a blue cast, purplish blue. So we're going to right now go in here to the Adjustments and Levels, Curves, and we are going to come in to the blue channel, and we're going to also reduce it. So let's go right in the center, right there, and pull it down. Just enough to get rid of that blue. You can see it's going away really nicely about right there. I don't want to get rid of too much of it, so we're going to keep it right there. Okay, now we're starting to see a black space in the nebulosity showing up here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to we've been cutting the colors. We're going to boost the reds because this was taken with a HA. I shot this in hydrogen alpha and O3 at 6 nanometer bandwidths, bandpass, dual bandpass filter. It was a one-shot color, and so that's what we have. We have the image that is primarily HA and O3. So HA is going to be the reddish colors, and the O3s are the lighter yellows and the light colors of the stars. So also some of the nebulosity is poking through here with the oxygen. So we're going to come up here now and boost the red. We go to Image, Adjustments, Curves, Red. You see that? Now, we're going to come in here, down in here, right underneath here where it's a little bit reddish. We don't want to pick the bright color. We're going to come down in here, okay? And we're going to pick this, again, by taking the eyedropper, positioning it where we think it should be. That's probably good. Press the Control key and hit the left mouse button. And again, we see exactly where that color is. Now, we're going to turn up the volume. And here's where the magic starts to happen. Check it out. Now, we don't want to go all the way up because we're going to stretch it again. So we're going to come down about like this. We want it up pretty high because this is our red channel. Something like that. And we're going to say OK. All right. Now what we're going to do, we're going to just do a series of stretches. But remember, after we get done with curves, we always go to levels. And we come onto red and we pull this back. It's just very important that we remember to do this. It'll make a much better looking and more high contrast in the picture. Okay, now let's go up to Image and let's do some adjustments, several of them. Let's go to Curves. We're going to do an RGB and we're going to pull it up starting pretty high at the top here now. We're going to come up like this. All right, now I want to show you a magic trick here. We're going to come pretty high up here, okay? And then we're going to come down here and make another dot and pull this back down, you see. Let's take this down just a little bit. We kind of went crazy there. And we're going to come here and pull this down. Now see how when I'm pulling this down, you see how this area is rising. As this comes down, this goes up like a teeter-totter. And watch what the picture does. It just becomes really, really very contrasted. You see that? This is too much, so we want to back off a little bit. I'm going to get a really nice contrast here. And sometimes it takes several different iterations of figuring out what looks the best in the contrast. I think down low in the middle here, about right in here maybe. And this is called an S-curve. So we're going to do something about like that. And you see what this is doing for us. It's starting to show the trails here of this nebulosity. They're hanging through dark and light areas here. You can see how it looks like it's falling down. Okay, we're going to say OK. All right. That's looking pretty good now. I believe that what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to Image here, Adjustments. We're going to also look at the levels, look at the red because that's what we last did. And now we can't make any more stretches with this. We can't make any more changes, so we're going to leave it alone. Okay, so now we're going to come up here and do an adjustment and curves. And we're just going to do a big general boost of this, up and up just a little, to make it more prevalent because it's become kind of dark. You see the stars have become dark, and we don't want that. We want to see some stars. So we're going to get that up about like that. Now that's starting to look really choice to me. You can see the Horsehead Nebula is really poking out there. We're going to leave it right there. Okay, now what we want to do is, you can spend hours on this stuff, and this video is going to be almost an hour long. I may have to break it into 2 segments for YouTube. I Have to attack that idea here in a minute, but if you notice here, this is artwork. We're going to take a look and see what is it we need to do. What's wrong with this picture? What can we do to make it better? Well, this is looking pretty nice in here. So let's see if we can adjust some colors, okay? I want to show you how to do that. Very powerful tool is the filter. Now, before we do this, I'm going to show you over here. We're going to make a duplicate copy of this, a duplicate layer by hitting this, and we're just going to call this camera raw filter. It doesn't have any meaning other than to show us what we're doing. Just because we name it doesn't do it, is what I'm saying. It just tells us what we did. So we're going to do that. Here we're on the camera raw filter in the background. It's just a copy of it. So we're looking at two different levels, two layers rather. What we're going to do now is come in here and we're going to do camera raw filter. We're going to hit filter and we're going to do camera raw filter, and it'll bring up another window and it'll really give us some good adjustments here. This is one of my favorite tools in Photoshop. We're going to come over here and open the detail. If it's not already open, we're going to do some sharpening. So we're going to come over here and really sharpen this up. This really makes a difference. It's subtle, but I usually pull this right on up to about 139, 140, really up there. Now we're going to take a little bit of noise reduction up to about 6 or 8 so we can set this detail as well up and the contrast up as well. So now if you notice here, we're starting to really see these lines if you look closely, and you see the stars within that nebula and lining up with the nebulosity. We see a line of nebulosity and another section. We're really seeing the horsehead nicely, and it's all because of this color we're doing in detail. So the filter, camera raw filter. Okay, so we're done with this. We're not going to do any color noise reduction because it tends to make it blurry and fuzzy, and I don't want to do that. Now we're going to open up Color Mixer is the second thing we're going to do. Now this is so powerful. This, you can see, are all the colors. And these colors that are contained in this picture, we can adjust them. Let's adjust the red up and down just to show. You'll see right away what it does. Okay, so we see we're a little bit blown out there. So actually the red looks pretty good as it is in the center. Maybe just a little. I'm going to put it up to about +7. Now let's look at the orange. Sometimes we can bring out really good highlights with the orange. In this case, when we pull it over here, we're starting to really blow this out right in here. So we don't want to see that kind of stuff right there. So we can only go so high with this. Let's back it down until that disappears, until it just disappears. See that? We're going to adjust the red again a little bit and get it up just a little. It's all a balancing act here is what it is. And you'll see it as you start playing with this. Maybe we want something like that. Okay. And now we're going to play with the yellow. Now this is really going to affect the starlight more than anything. If you notice, see how the stars are getting bigger and smaller. Now you see if we have the yellow over here, you can see how this star here begins to have sort of a like an eclipse looking shadow on it there. So we don't want that. We want to try to get rid of that. So we want to try to move the yellows over more toward this side, which I think gives us a little more clarity. You can start to see these lines forming in here when we push the yellow over. Green is probably out of this picture completely. You can see there's really not a lot of green left. Aquas, I don't think we're going to have any effect with these. So basically we're going to leave these alone. All right, so that is the power of the camera raw filter. We're going to say OK. Okay, I'm going to show you this. We go up here to opacity, if you haven't used this before, and it will work on the one that's clicked. So you see how we've got, not background, but we've got this one clicked. Here's the opacity. We're going to turn that up and down. I want to show you what it does. Now watch the screen. we see almost no change here. So I think what I'm doing is the fill. Let's try fill. Which is really kind of messing with me now, because I would have thought that would have done something differently. Maybe it's because it hasn't caught up with my movement here. So normally we can turn up and down the features here. Let's go here and see. No, it's not going to let us do that. And this is turning the background completely off. Okay, so I'm not sure what's going on there. I would have expected that we could turn on and off these effects that we just had. And maybe it's because it's so subtle I'm not seeing it. I don't know. It could be. Yeah, that's what it is. It's so subtle. Now, look right here. Watch right in here. Here and here as I move this. And you'll see it is making a difference. See that? See that, how it's turning it on and off up there? Very small difference, but it is making a difference. So I think we're going to keep this turned up pretty high because we don't want to see that. We want to see that. Let's keep that up. So again, I'm talking about this area right in here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Click off into the black. We're going to view this now by saying view and fit on screen. Oh, by the way, it's a little late to tell you, but if you don't have these windows here and you want to see a window, go to Window, and you can find all the different windows. See, we have layers picked right here, and that's this window. So I just wanted to let you know that. Better late than never. Okay. So what we have now is got a pretty good looking picture here. There's a few things I don't like about it, though. One thing I don't like is I don't like the oblongness of that star. And it could have been my back focus was off, or I'm not sure if it's that, though, because when I look at the top up in here, the stars do look pretty good. They do look a little elongated toward the center on both sides here. So I think my back focus needed to be a little bit longer. The camera needed to be a little bit further away from the telescope. Should have added a little have some Delrin spacers. So I'll be sure to do that, because I think that's what's making this star elongated, see, because it's toward the edge, and it's so big we really see it. So how can we fix that now? Well, we could go up here to this healing brush tool. I don't know if you've ever used that, but it's pretty cool. Look at the little demo that happens here. It comes over and you pick up a spot near what you want to get rid of, and you lay it in, and it magically goes away. So see, we could do that by picking space up here and laying it in, so that we could eliminate this and make it round. Well, that's a lot of work. I've done it before. Instead of that, I'm going to open up a filter that I have, and I'm going to make another copy here. I'm going to make another copy of my background. Duplicate layer. And we're going to call this Star Spikes. All right. And Star Spikes will now come up here. We're going to choose it. We've got it chosen. And we're going to come over here and do Filter and Pro Digital Software Star Spikes Pro 4 right there. This is a software that I bought and put into Photoshop. And if you know how to do that, that's for another video. I'm sure you can find another video online that would show you how to do that. So now we're in Star Spikes 4. We're going to come in here and we're going to show what we do is we can pick stars by coming over here and drawing a box around them. Okay. Now you see right away how that changed that. Let's go back again. Let's hide it. Watch what it does when we hide it. Now watch closely. See that? We're back to the oblong. So we go to Show, and we come up here and highlight it. Look at that. Now, I kind of got carried away because I got the star behind it. So let's go back and hide that again. Okay? And in fact, what we're going to do is come to Show here, and we're going to go really, really carefully just on that star. There we go. Now, notice how it's made it so it's round. Now, well, how did it do that? Well, here's how it did it. We've put a lot of spikes in there, and I can show you by here finding the number of points. Let's take them down here. I want to exaggerate this for you. Now, see over here we have length, angle, intensity, quantity, and so we can put spikes on these stars if we want to. And take this down because I don't want them on the other stars so much. And so we're going to come over here and put the number of points to 4 if we want, or 5 or 6. So many times you'll see 4 because that's the way the old telescopes actually put those in the picture. So it's a very nostalgic look, and typically the angle would be perfectly straight up and down like that at 0 degrees, or 100 degrees in this case. 90 degrees, I mean. We go down to 0, there. That's what it would look like. And you can do spike sharpness here, make the spikes very narrow. Now, something like that's what you might see in an old telescope picture, black and white, camera shot. But we really are seeing the circle elongated. I want to see the circle back, that airy disk back. So I'm going to fake it here. I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of spikes on there. You see, we're putting dozens of spikes. But we're going to take the length down, okay, and the intensity down, and we're going to eventually make this look as though that it is a star. If we can do this right. I've done it before here. There we go. And it's the spike sharpness. See, we're going to take the sharpness out of those spikes. Okay, now we're going to take down the length of them, and we're going to make that star look like a little glowing circle by the time we get done here. Something like that. Now, see how much rounder that looks. It's pretty big in the picture, but I still like it better than it was with the elongated star. Okay, I'm going to come up here one more here. We are now going to say this is done. We're going to go to OK. All right. And we are going to see if that really did something for us. Now, some of the times I've done this and it doesn't really show up very well. And so let's see what's going on here. There we go. So we have to go up to the camera raw filter plug-in, not plug-in, but level, and we turn this up and down. That's what's cool, is we can adjust it as a final adjustment on the fill button here. And I kind of like it maybe, I don't know, about right there is what I like. We'll leave it just like that. Okay? And with that, we are very close to calling this quits. One thing I was going to try here, but I don't think I'm going to do it. I did buy this plug-in panel right here and actions, and I've got this star enhancement I could do with the astronomy tools version 1. We see it there at the top, astronomy tools v1/6pscs.atn, and sometimes I'll use light pollution removal or deep space noise reduction and that kind of thing. But I like this so much I don't want to touch it. I'm just really liking the way this looks, and I think we're finished. And again, it's the artistic part of this. Just because there's a process doesn't mean we're going to use it every time, okay? There's so many infinite variables. If you think about the permutations that are possible, it's infinite with this software. So I see our stars look good. We've got good nebulosity. We've got wonderful looking stars that look connected into this nebula. Very nice. I'm going to call this one done. Okay? So this is the end of the video. I hope that you have learned a little something more about Photoshop and about stacking and about playing with the stars and doing different things to make your picture look nicer. Again, thanks for watching. I hope this has helped. And as always, clear skies.